Hello everybody. So here at the Scott Learning Center we have a passion for cotton. Behind me is one of our PGR trials that we conduct. So this trial, it consists of 12 to 14 varieties. They range from early, mid to late season varieties. In this trial we have 3 treatments. We have untreated block, a passive block, and an aggressive block. As you know, over the past 10, 20 years or so, cotton varieties have really changed. These varieties nowadays, they're more growthy, they have higher yield potential, and we have to manage them different than we did in those times. So now, I would like to turn it over to Jay Mahaffey to discuss some of the details of the treatments, as well as look into some data that has been produced over the past few years.
Well, I'm out this morning evaluating our PGR plots here on the Learning Center on the virtual tour. As you can see, this cotton is tall and has had no growth regulation applied. Every year here at Scott, we put a plot in the field that evaluates new cotton varieties from the NPE program and existing commercial varieties for their response and demand for growth regulation applications. What we typically do is we'll have 3 treatments in the field. We'll have an untreated check and 2 other regimes. I'm standing in the untreated check right now. It's had no growth regulation applied, and it's in this very growthy delta sort of a system. What we learn from this are really 2 things. Number one, it gives us a background of what the environment has been for the given year. You can see that this cotton is almost 6 feet tall now. So we've had a pretty growthy season up to this point. The other thing that we will learn as we apply the other growth regimes to the treatments and plots is the response of the varieties to growth regulation. From that, then we can get an idea of the kind of information we can share with growers and how they should manage these varieties moving forward. So this is the first treatment regime that we compare all the varieties in. This is what we refer to as the passively managed plot. In this plot, our first applications of PGR are delayed and they're at somewhat reduced rates in most years. You can see even with these reductions in rates and later start in the timing, I've reduced the height of these plants at least a foot, maybe 18 inches. Those untreated check plots were over my head. These are slightly below my shoulder. This shows you that we have some impact with the passive treatments, but that may not necessarily be the treatment that we need to use in all varieties. That's the purpose of this testing, is to characterize varieties and their response to these different treatment regimes. So now I'm out in the plots looking at the same variety in the aggressively managed plot. In our untreated check plots, they were over my head. In the passively managed plots of reduced intensity, they were at my shoulder, and you see in here, this same variety, which is DeltaPine 2038, is right at my belt or a little over. You can see by being a little more aggressive with growth management in these some particular varieties, we get differential responses in growth. That's the purpose of these trials. Not all varieties should be managed the same way. Some should be managed rather passively, some should be managed aggressively. For that reason, we go out in these trials, and when this year 2020 is over with, we will measure height, we'll measure height reduction, and we'll measure yield and fiber quality out of these. From that, we'll have a lot of information like we've had from years past, and I'll show some of that as we go through the tour. We'll have a lot of information about new varieties when we introduce those into the marketplace, so we can give you some guidance about how they ought to be managed. So we've seen some interesting results on our field tour for the year, for the 2020 season. We are continuing to collect data. We have a lot of data from previous years that we will share with you through the fall. The kinds of data we collect will be internode elongation. That's part of what I'm doing now. We will actually collect a lot of other information through the year. We'll take plant height reduction, yield, and fiber quality from these sort of plots. The goal of that is to differentiate the varieties and be able to share with you information about how the varieties respond to growth control when we put them in the marketplace and farmers buy them. We look forward to sharing with all that information. Thank you for coming on the field tour today.